I wanted to give you this overview because this whole time, the past 5 years, I've been trying to improve myself. I've been trying to get better at my life. And I've come up with all kinds of strategies for how to do that and ways of dealing with my own brain, and I've gotten steadily better at it. And I've been trying something recently that I'm only 5 weeks into trying this, but results so far have been amazing. And even if it doesn't really work out long term, I feel like it's worth talking about things like this. Because social media is really new. And we haven't figured out how to deal with it as a culture yet. A lot of people have talked about this, about how social media, YouTube and Twitter, Reddit, Tumblr, 4chan, wherever you hang out online, these places affect your brain in concerning ways. They're all trying to get you to spend as much time there as possible, and if you don't fight, it's real easy to let them pull you in and keep you there forever, basically. And a lot of people have been talking about different ways of dealing with that. ContraPoints recently deleted her Twitter, although there were other things about that that caused that. CGP Grey has talked a lot about like being really intentional about his relationship with technology and like leaving the internet effectively for a lot of time. John Green hasn't logged into Twitter for a long time. Xserbia has a really good video about like we've ruined our attention spans with the internet. I was recently watching JReg. I don't know how to say his name. His name is spelled J-R-E-G. His username is spelled that way. But at one point, he gets really sincere and serious, and he talks a bunch about your phone, about screens, and about how if you don't try to stop it, if you're not careful with screens, if you're not careful with your phone and your computer, they can kill you. He talks about how they can destroy your mental health. And that's happening to varying degrees to lots of people. And lots of people have been, with varying levels of success, have been finding ways to fight back against that. And I had tried a bunch of them before, but I'm trying something a little new now, and it's going really well. Xserbia talks about unplugging your Wi-Fi router for large periods of the day. I can't do that because I share my Wi-Fi router with my sibling, and they need the internet a lot. ContraPoints talked about getting a program that blocks particularly bad websites from your computer. I've tried that, and it didn't really work. I wound up finding ways to distract myself offline. I wound up finding ways to waste all of my time offline. And I would also just like wait for the internet to come back. Like it was rough. And some people like delete their accounts on certain platforms or log out and give the password to somebody else and tell them to change the password and so they can't log back in. I think all of those are useful strategies. I think if anyone out there is trying to find a way to have a more healthy relationship with their technology, I think you should keep all of those in mind as options that you might want to consider. Unplug your router for a large period of the day, get a program that blocks websites, log out of certain social media, but none of those did it for me. So far, here's what is working for me. I got my computer and my phone and my headphones. I got them all together, and I put them in a cupboard. And I told myself, I'm not going to get you back out until 4 p.m. tomorrow. And then at 4 p.m. tomorrow, before I would get them out, I would tell myself, I'm going to use you for no more than an hour, and all I'm going to do is check some email and do some homework that I need to do online. And when I'm done, I'm going to put you back, and I'm not going to get you out until 4 p.m. the next day. And it's really draconian. Like, this is an extreme measure, but it's not just that I'm more productive. It's not just that I'm doing better in school, because I was already doing okay in school. It's not just that I have more time. I'm happier this way. I hope it's obvious by this point that I love YouTube. I love YouTube videos. I love the medium. I love what people do here. I love just in concept the idea of a platform where anyone can make whatever they want and put it online for everyone to see. But when I limit that, when I make sure that it's a treat, when I make sure that looking at screens in general is a treat, I'm happier. I'm so much happier. My therapist said that I seem sharper now, that my mind seems clearer, that I'm more present in the moment since I started doing this. This sounds hokey, but it feels like I'm free. It was a huge transition. I had to take a whole bunch of stuff on my computer that I used to just kind of organize my day and stuff, and I had to transfer all of that to physical paper. I had to make a physical calendar for myself. I had to make a physical to-do list. I took a whole bunch of notes that I had taken on stuff and I printed them out. I had to take a whole lot of my life and I had to transfer it from the electronic world into the physical world, onto physical paper. And that transition was rough, but it's really hard to explain how life feels different now. How I can just kind of be a little bit bored sometimes. How I can just finish what I was doing and just kind of sit back. And there's no phone, there's no email to check, there's no Twitter to check, there's no YouTube subscriptions to check, there's no news channels to check. I finish what I was doing and I sit back and I'm just there for a little bit. And I look outside and I look at the leaves changing color in the fall. So if none of that stuff worked for you, if it's realistic, I just want to add this to the pile of things anyone out there might be considering. I just want this to be another option available to people who might not have thought about it otherwise. You can't extract yourself from the electronic world completely because we've built a lot of our society around it already. We need email to exist now. I don't know how I would manage my finances if I couldn't log into my bank's website. I don't want to live like this forever. Like, I want to find a different balance, but I haven't quite figured out how to watch the YouTube that I do want to watch while not letting it consume my life, because I do want to do that, but honestly, I would rather never watch another YouTube again for the rest of my life than go back to how things were. I'm not just more productive. I'm relaxed. I'm happy. I'm a lot happier this way. I thought I would miss it. I thought I would miss YouTube and Twitter and Tumblr, but I don't. I'm glad they're gone. And I hope that's one more experience that helps people out there figure out how to exist in this new world, how to exist in this world where there's constant novelty at our fingertips at all times. There's another thing I want to talk about. I've mentioned my therapist a few times now. I have a message for people out there about therapy, about seeing a psychologist, therapist, counselor, whatever. For one thing, I kind of think everyone should have a therapist. Like, in the same way that everyone has a doctor to take care of your body, everyone should have a therapist to help them take care of their brain. But, that said, seeing the doctor is more important for some people than others, and I think seeing a therapist is more important for some people than others. And I've talked to people with some pretty serious mental health issues who have tried seeing a therapist, and it doesn't help much. But I think I am kind of almost the ideal candidate for therapy. And it took me a while to figure that out. So I want to tell people out there, here are some warning signs for like, hey, if you haven't considered therapy, here are some signs that it would be particularly effective for you. The biggest one is if you can afford it, because I know some people who like, they can't, they don't have the time, they don't have the money. If that's you, capitalism sucks. I'm sorry. I'll be talking more about capitalism later. But yeah, good luck. If you can afford it, if you have the money and the time, a therapist can't heal you on their own. They can't make your brain better. They can't just show you the path to mental health. A therapist is a tool. A therapist, like you can go to a doctor and you can say, I have these symptoms, what do I do? And the doctor will say, do this. And you do that and you probably get better. A therapist isn't like that. I made the analogy with doctors earlier, but a therapist isn't like that. A therapist is a tool for you to use to make yourself and your life better. Because a therapist can't make you change. A therapist can't make all of your fears and anxieties and traumas and bad habits go away. All of that's work you have to do, but a therapist can say that makes sense or that sounds impulsive and dumb. A lot of what you can get from a therapist you can also get from friends, but friends often, it's a little cliche at this point to say that like friends have their own agendas. Therapists have their own agendas too, though. It's to like make you want to come back and keep giving them money, but it's really, really helpful to be able to go to a therapist and say, am I going about this the right way? Do you have any ideas for anything else I could be doing better? And have the therapist say, yes, you are going about this the right way, or maybe try this instead. It's really useful to be able to go to a therapist and be like, I think maybe I should be doing this, but do you have any other ideas? And a lot of the time they will give you other ideas. And it's maybe really helpful to have someone to go to that, like, someone who's like a professional at dealing with other people's problems. Like, friends are great, but it's really useful to go to someone who's studied psychology and who spends lots of time helping other people through their mental health problems and say, and like get their take on, am I going about this right? What could I maybe be doing differently? Unless you have an agenda, unless you have some idea of like what you're trying to get out of this therapy, and unless you go in there with that in mind, therapy probably isn't going to do a lot for you, at least in my experience, at least given the people I've talked to. Based on my experience, it seems like if you know what you want out of your therapist, then it can be really effective, then it can really work. Then you can have basically an assistant in your project of self-improvement and self-discovery. That works best if you're already kind of good at introspection. Like, there's some quote that's something along the lines of, if you really want to understand something, try explaining it to someone else. Because you don't really understand something until you can explain it to someone else. A therapist kind of forces you to try to explain yourself. And the effort of trying to explain yourself helps you to understand yourself better. And if you understand yourself better, that opens up a lot of doors. But I think that applies whether you're already good or bad at explaining things to people, but I think it's especially good if you're already kind of good at putting things into words. I make YouTube videos. I'm kind of successful at making YouTube videos because I'm good at putting things into words. Also, some people kind of have some trust issues. Some people really struggle opening up to a therapist and telling them personal things. I was like bursting at the seams, wanting to tell people all of this stuff. I don't have a lot of secrets. I was ready to tell people what was up with me. If you're ready to tell people what's up with you, and if you want to change your life, but you don't know how and your brain is getting in the way, a therapist might help. A therapist would probably help at that point. If you can afford it, if you're motivated to make some kind of change in your life. Those are the two big ones. If you can afford it, and if you're already motivated to make some kind of change in your life, then a therapist can be a really helpful tool to speed that along. Over the course of these videos, you've like watched the sun go down. I'm not gonna change the lighting. I'm gonna like see how far this goes. I'm gonna get a little bit of water. Where is the water?